Hello and welcome to another edition, episode number 52 of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. Jim here alongside my friend, co-host, former coach, professional evaluator. We almost have the same hat on today for those watching on the YouTube page, but we don't. It's different. His probably looks a little bit cooler than mine because it's actually a home plate, but I love my hat nevertheless. He's a successful business owner too, everybody. And he's the people's champ. His name is Jake Epstein.
Yeah, yours is more of a Texas,
Mm-hmm.
ranch hat.
Yeah.
It's got the patch with the stitching on it. The new ones will be in the shape of Texas. So we have a Texas line coming out. So
Very
it's
good.
the state of Texas, it says the lab.
That's good branding.
Yes. There's nothing I don't like less, though, than merchandise and inventory. I will tell you that's it's a part of the business revenue stream.
Yeah.
But it's a very small stream and it takes a lot of work and I'm just not into it. But people like the stuff. People like stuff.
Where can you get these hats? Just out of curiosity, in case anybody watching wants one. Who knows?
You right now you got to go down to the lab. We have one left. That's why we got to order more hats. Yeah, we got to do another run of gear soon. So
back order.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I'll be honest. I mean, they go like hotcakes. People just. It's like Nike, or Adidas or Under Armour. People are like, oh, Lab's got new gear. We better buy it all up because there's such a market for it, and it appreciates in value.
Mm-hmm.
You buy a hat today for $30 and it's worth $50 the next day. It's a whole black market. It's great.
I sometimes, I know you pretty well. I sometimes can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not. You're a very good actor.
I actually held that one together pretty well.
You did. Very
totally
good.
Sarcastic. Totally sarcastic there. Yes.
So here we are drinking our coffee on this Monday morning or whatever time it is.
Yeah.
Whatever time you want it to be this
Whatever
week.
It is after Tatis hit 2 home runs over the weekend.
Hey, I'm glad you brought him up. I have a stat here that was tweeted by Buster Olney, and I want to read it to you, and I want to get more of your opinion because I think I want to ask you about his shoulder too and how that's affecting his swing. This is from Buster Olney on Twitter, and actually it's from Elias Sports. Fernando Tatis Jr. has played 157 games, giving easy context to his statistics because that is just about one full season. This is from Buster Olney. Tatis Jr. has 45 home runs, 106 RBIs, 29 steals. By the way, quick question for you. Do you say RBI or RBIs?
Ooh, that's a good one.
If you say RBI, the show's over.
Yeah, I don't think I do.
Good.
Yeah, okay. I think I say it plural.
Yeah, for all of you who say RBI,
he had 3 RBIs.
Right, yeah. Runs batted in. Right, people. Yeah,
but runs, it's always plural. It's not run batted in. It's runs batted in. That's so essentially, RBI is plural though.
That's what I try to tell
people. It stands for
people.
Runs ballot. Yeah,
that's what it should be. RBIs. Even when you're writing it should be RBIs with a small s. It's not run batted.
What if it was only one? He had 1 RBI.
Then you put RBI, 1 RBI. But if he has 2 RBIs, it's RBI lowercase s.
Well, I get that. But if you're translating it, RBI is runs.
Correct.
So it would say 1 runs batted in. If you were to write RBI out and they only had 1 of them.
I'm saying if you write 1 RBI out, you write 1 R.
No, not R. If you spell RBI out, what it stands for, the acronym. Runs,
or it could be runs
batted.
Right, but
runs batted in.
But whoever said it can be just 1 run.
I'm just trying to be confrontational.
Well, for all those people who say RBI, I don't want to be your friend. Just for everybody watching, listening to it.
It's over.
We're not going to have a relationship.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about
Buster Olney. Buster Olney. Tatis,
I bet your Buster Olney would agree with me. By the way, I don't know if Tim Kirchin would though about that. I think Tim Kirchin's had an argument about 106 RBIs, 29 steals. He is the only player in history who had at least 40 home runs, 100 RBIs, and 20 stolen bases over his first 162 games. He hit a couple home runs last night.
Wow.
Or over the weekend against the Dodgers. 1 home run where he barely even finished his swing because of his shoulder. But we're going to do a mechanical breakdown series on him down the line. But he is he might be the face of baseball at this point.
Yeah.
And he's got one of the smoothest lows
and
and swings that throughout all of baseball. It's everything's very calm.
So he is magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
He hit Bauer, he hit 2 breaking balls for home runs off Bauer this weekend.
And he mocked him when he does the one eye thing, which is
hilarious. Which was funny. And which Bauer actually said he liked. He's like, that's how the game has to be. I'm not going to light him up because I'll probably strike him out a few times and I'll probably, give him some ninja sword. He also said, Bauer said, he struck out Hosmer and gave him like the sword.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hosmer hit a ball right back at my face the next at bat. And then he gave me the sword when he got to first, and we both had a chuckle about it. And I just think that's cool, man. I think that's baseball. People take stuff way too seriously. It is a game. And like guys, hey, pitchers get pumped up. Like pitchers get excited. They get pumped up and they're going to celebrate too. Mm-hmm. And it's okay if a hitter celebrates because it's just, that's the way the game is moving. And when you start throwing at guys for that, then you got a problem. And Bauer called guys out on that. I thought it was pretty cool. He's like, you know what? They're going to get me sometimes. I'm going to get them sometimes. It's just the way it is. But getting back to Tatis's home runs and multiple RBIs, he hit a hanging slider in the first inning. I think it was the first inning. Mm-hmm. And then he hit a slider that was about a ball outside. Maybe even more, maybe a ball and a half, like 3 to 5 inches off the plate. He hit for a home run. Mm-hmm. Who does that? The guy
hit it to left center, correct?
And he hit it just to the left of center. Okay. Yeah, but he was cheating, people. Yeah. Cheating is bad. It's not bad. He was totally looking for. There's no reason for him to swing at a slider off the plate unless he was looking for it. If you break it down, so I looked at it. I watched the video. He dove into the plate. Probably 6 inches, his stride foot. He dove into it. He was looking away. He was definitely looking off speed. And even though the pitch wasn't even a strike, he was able to get barrel to it. Now, most guys don't have, even if they do have the right thought process, and they don't have the ability to do that. But I would have been pissed if I was Bauer. Bauer's like, are you kidding me? That ball wasn't even a strike. And he just hit it off the plate because he had a good mindset. Maybe that brings us back to Vlad Guerrero. Why was Vlad Guerrero such a bad ball hitter? I don't know. I wasn't in his head. But maybe he would look for different pitches and he would sell out so much that he would know the break and he would swing at those breaking balls that ended up being at his shins and he would get a piece. So when you have a player with that kind of ability and that kind of mental aptitude at a young age, man, that's the Cy Young winner he just hit off of.
Yeah.
And Bauer
making $40 million a year.
Does Bauer have his own line now? I saw him doing the interview, and it's like a Bauer. It looked like a bee with like a electric.
He's some kind of brand.
Bauer,
I'm not sure.
Added. He had it on his Nike shirt.
Yeah.
That had the Dodgers. It had the big. I mean, this guy's.
Yeah.
He's branding himself.
Another thing about Fernando Tatis Jr. and it just goes to show the point we made a couple of weeks ago about the kids of fathers who played the game.
Yeah.
You can just tell his approach and the way he goes about the game is just different because he had that clubhouse experience growing up and he had a father who played in the game who helped him understand how to actually go about his daily routine. You can just tell watching him every day on TV or just watching him even like I was this weekend that something's different about him and it's not just his talent, his physical talent.
I don't know what is going to be up with his follow through. He let go yesterday, with one arm. And that's why I teach players, even my own kid likes to let go with one arm. And when you do that all the time and you take a lot of swings and you continue to pull this over here, it puts a lot of strain on your bicep tendon, on your rotator cuff, on your labrum. I remember the first guy to do it was Fred McGriff. I remember he used to have that big helicopter finish and he tore his rotator cuff.
Yeah.
On his non-throwing arm, on his right arm, right? And he was left-handed thrower. So, there's something to that. So we have to be careful the way that we do it. So even when I have players like in the online academy and we're doing drills where I have them, we're doing bottom hand drills, one arm drills.
Yeah.
I'll make sure as they're doing it and they come through that they don't go too far. I don't want them to open up this shoulder, because of that, because if you do a couple hundred of those every week or 1,000 of them a month, and you're lifting weights, it puts undue stress that's not going to be needed.
By the way, people on MLB Network were talking about moving the mound back again and how it's possibly gaining more steam. And I know that I know your look is just it's just a look of disgust. Are we jumping the gun on this moving the mound back talk? I mean, I just think we're just jumping the gun way too fast. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's a weird
one.
It's like making it's like in hockey making the goal bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, I guess they did make and I'm not a hockey expert, but I do love the sport.
They made it
the
a
area
bigger. They made not the goal
where they could stand.
Right.
Whatever it is.
The goal crease.
The crease. Yeah. They made that
smaller.
Mm-hmm. Right. So they could get closer to the goalie. Right. But they didn't make the actual dimensions any different.
Yeah.
The dimensions are skaters are faster. Skaters are stronger. Right. They're probably, they probably have better, skills. They probably, have harder shots nowadays than they did before, whatever. But they're not like making the skates different so that they slow them down.
Yeah.
They're not making, the sticks different or the curve. Well, maybe they adjusted that. I don't know. I'm talking, without really knowing all the rules. But, it's the same thing. Soccer, they haven't changed the size of the soccer goal. Like, you can't change the dimensions of the field.
Right.
Like, you can change the outfield dimensions, how far the ball goes, but you can't change the angles of the field. You can't change where the bases are. You can't change where the mound is. I have a really hard time for that. I think we're giving in to the deficiency of today's game, of the hitters today.
Yeah.
If you want to be better, I saw some of the worst calls in my life last night in that Dodger game. I don't know who the home plate umpire was, but he was brutal. He was calling pitches. That ball that Bauer threw this far off the plate probably would have been called a strike. He rang somebody up for the Dodgers, and it's not like I'm a huge Dodger fan, right? I'm a baseball fan, but I'm definitely more of a Padre fan. I grew up in San Diego, and I'm pulling for Tingler. But, I mean, he rang somebody up. Was it, I don't know, Dodger guys. They just roll new guys in all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They really do. All these young guys, they just kind of roll them in. They all kind of look the same, have the same body. Anyway.
You're talking about pitcher.
No, they're
umpire.
Offensive guys. Well, I'm talking about the guy that struck out, but he struck out the bases. There was like second and third. It was like early in the game, right? Like a base hit blows this game open. It's like 2-1 or something.
Yeah.
And the guy rings him up on a 2-2 pitch that was, I mean, they showed it in the strike zone, and Snell laughed as he's walking off the mound, after he threw the pitch. That's how bad the call was. So if you want to increase offense, you can make the strike zone not determined by the person sitting behind the plate, but make it universal, make it digital, whatever you got to do, make it hittable so that if a pitch catches the bottom or the top right of that strike zone, it's not really a strike. Like, it's not a very difficult thing to create a strike zone that's, if we're having issues with breaking balls bouncing that are being called a strike, then, you adjust it, right? It's technology. So you do that, and you leave and you get rid of the shifts. You make, two guys have to be on each side of the infield. Boom. And now all of a sudden you can reward a guy for hitting a line drive up the middle. Right now, a guy hits a hard ground ball up the middle or a line drive up the middle, it's an out.
No, Tatis did it last night. I think it was like his fourth at bat, maybe. Yeah, he did it last night. And I think it was, well, hold on, I have it here. At second base, Noose, where that is. He was second.
Right.
He was to the left of second.
Another young Dodger guy they just brought up.
Yeah.
I mean, they really do. They got rid of, I should say they got rid of, but is it Jason Taylor? Was his name Jason? No.
Chris Taylor.
Chris Taylor, right?
Well, he wasn't in the lineup last night, but.
No, I think Taylor signed with somebody else.
No, that was Kike Hernandez.
Oh, that was Kike.
Red Sox,
okay, that's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, all these same guys that are just like kind of good athletes that play all over the field, they run them in. But that's one way to do it. Right now, what you're telling players to do, look, I'm going to give you the opposite field ground ball.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that do? Well, that takes away really extra base hits. I mean, let's be honest. It's not that easy to hit an opposite field double.
Right.
Okay. I mean, that's a hard thing to do, to flight a ball hard into the opposite field gap, right? So now I'm trying to just hit a ball because they're giving me the entire, opposite field ground ball side. I'm just trying to put a ball over there.
Yeah.
Well, that takes away extra base hits, which takes away scoring runs or getting into scoring position. So now we're like, okay, I got to drive the ball, but now I can't pull the ball hard because I got a second baseman playing right field.
Yeah.
I got another right fielder out there. I got the shortstop up the middle if I hit. So you forced hitters and you forced baseball into hitting balls in the air and try to hit home runs. That's what we've made the game that way by being smarter. Right. The analytics make people. So now, I'm not an analytics guy, but you look at enough data and you're like, okay, well, he hits it here all the time. Let's take away the base hit up the middle.
Right.
Let's take away this. So they're doing
that's simple job. Analytics 101, pretty much.
Right. It's just scouting.
Yeah.
It's just putting it into a computer versus somebody having to handwrite it and then come up with it themselves. Right. So but now all of a sudden, it's changed the game. So now we're going to move the mound back to make it easier to hit a home run. How about if you want more hits and you want guys to put more balls in play, you have to give them a field to be able to do that. And I do think, and I'm probably I'm pretty sure I'm in the minority on the shift and probably on the strike zone too. But I think those are things that we're not changing the game. I mean, the game's meant to have two guys on each side of the infield. Okay. That's why we call them positions. You're playing second base, not, whatever the heck that's called behind second base, mid center field. And we have a strike zone that's defined in a rule book, but it's interpreted by different people. And I think if you bring those together, maybe things will change. And that's why I'm running for president in 2024.
Epstein 2024?
But I can't use the name Epstein. That'll never get voted in.
Could I be in your cabinet?
Sure.
What would I be?
I'd have to change my name to like Wallace or Smith.
All right, but more importantly, what would I be in your cabinet?
Director of bullshit. And you'd be the highest paid member and the most important. Otherwise known as chief of staff.
I thought you were alluding to somebody else. Well, you know what? One and the same, I guess. The umpire last night, I hate to call him out, Chad Whitson. I don't know if you heard.
Yeah, he had a bad game. Or I only saw a couple innings, so he missed a lot.
You know who else had a bad game last night behind the plate? The umpire in the Yankees-Indians game. Look him up here. Greg Gibson. Usually he's pretty good. He had a bad game last night.
And you know what? Sometimes you have bad games. You don't feel well, right? You don't feel well. You got the coronavirus running through you.
Hey, fun story. I once, I'm not going to name the umpire, but I once went on a date with his sister a few years back. She lives in Florida. I won't name the major league umpire, but I went on a date with his sister. And she showed me a picture of him ejecting Mike Matheny when Matheny was with the Cardinals. Yeah.
That's weird. I thought that Joe West's sister would have been a lot older for you, but to each their own, Jim.
Yes, indeed. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, Apple, Google, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, TuneIn, and Stitcher, and YouTube. For those listening, not watching the show, I don't know what you're doing. You should be watching us, but okay, whatever. Could be driving the car, whatever. The Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page. So go ahead and please subscribe so you can watch us do the show every single week. Once a week.
Mondays, 9 a.m.
A couple things before we get to our overrated, underrated segment today. I've got some fun topics too. Some fun little cheesy topics that you might like. I have a feeling we'll agree on some, but maybe not others, which is fine. I keep hearing one thing that annoyed me.
We can still be friends, Jim, if we don't agree on things. We can still be friends, can't we? We don't. It's not good to hang out with like-minded people all the time.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I don't know. A couple on here. If you say yay or nay and we disagree, our friendship
then it's over.
And our friendship may be put in jeopardy. One thing that annoyed me this week, though, it feels like that's like once every week. I'm listening to some broadcasts throughout throughout Major League Baseball, and I'm watching telecasts and whatnot, and I keep hearing people say, they're off to a slow start, and they're going to turn it around. And just look at the 2019 Washington Nationals. You know what really annoys me about that? Number one, first of all, that's a rarity. I think you would agree with that. A team that starts out 19-32 or 31, whatever it was, that's a rarity to come back and win the World Series. Literally everything has to fall into place, perfectly into place. The Nationals that year, there were so many different circumstances that they had to overcome. They had to overcome bad bullpen, which was a problem throughout the entire year, really until they got Daniel Hudson. They had to overcome early season injuries. But then what was working in their favor when they started to turn things around, number one, they had a very soft schedule, gave them a lot of confidence. So it gave them a chance to get into rhythm. Number two, they got their big bats back. And number three, they weren't really in a very tough division. They were in a division with one other team that was competing with them. Theoretically, right? I mean, we look at it realistically.
It's not the stress, right? They didn't have the stress staying in there.
It was the Atlanta Braves and it was the Washington Nationals. Maybe the Phillies a little bit, but they fell off. Okay. So my point is, too, when you say that, anybody says that, any manager that says that, I'm sure it was the same way when you were coaching at the collegiate level, too. And it should have been because there was a lot smaller of a schedule. When you talk and reference and talk about teams that got off to a slow start, use that as an example, or you say, well, we're off to a slow start, we're going to turn it around. I think that creates complacency in a clubhouse and around an organization. And I don't like complacency, as you probably know. Do you agree with me on that? Does this saying that or using the excuse of, well, we're off to a slow start, we'll turn it around, doesn't that create a little bit of complacency in the end? No. I think it does.
It sounds like it does, but the past is in the past. So we can't change what we did. If we started off, 5-15, and I say, yeah, we're off to a slow start. We were, the weather was bad, blah, blah, blah. I'm essentially trying to look at positives for moving forward. Now, if I'm a coach in spring training or in January, February practice in college, before that slow start happens, I am reiterating we can't get off to a slow start. You need to be sharp. I don't want to hear excuses about the weather and how it's cold and how we haven't been outside. It doesn't matter. What matters is wins and losses. And if we don't have enough wins and we start off slow here on this first trip of the year, we can't have anything to blame it on because we're not going to make a regional unless we do this. We're not going to make the playoffs unless we do this. So you need to be sharp. You need to prepare yourself during spring training, during preseason, if it's, college softball or college baseball, so that you don't have to look back and make excuses. So if I'm making this speech before the season started, then yes, I would never say something like, oh, we're going to get, if we get off to a slow start, we got to turn it around. But after that happens, I'm trying to make sure my ship doesn't go down, right? I'm going to have to find something positive. I'm going to have to deflect some of the negativity that might be happening. And hey, we're off to a slow start, but we'll turn it around. I mean, Bruce Bochy was the greatest manager at all time of protecting his players that were struggling in the media and in the press. And that would be something that he's off to a slow start, but we know he's always going to hit 260 this year with 15 home runs. Yeah. Right. Now, does Boch or does anyone else, do these managers really think that? No, they're pissed off that this guy's off to a slow start, that he half-assed his off-season training. He didn't show up ready to go in spring training or preseason or whatever it is. But these are things you have to say in the public eye.
Yeah, I agree. But you know what?
And by announcers. It's always announcers. You got to keep the listenership. We can't have people like Colorado, the Rockies stink, right? But the announcers can't be like, oh, they're just terrible. No, they started off slow, but they'll bounce back.
Yeah. They're 19-72, but they'll bounce back, right? You see my point? There's only
you only bounce back. You only have a month.
Only a certain ceiling, and same thing. After those 100 first plate appearances by a hitter, there's only so much protecting you can do at that point.
That's right.
That's all I'm saying.
No, you're right.
So I'm just not. I don't know. I don't disagree with you. I'm just not a complacency kind of guy. I'm not.
It depends where you are. If you're in the public eye and you're getting interviewed, then you're we're off to a slow start. It's just
I get it, but I just think a lot of fans could see through that and see, well, we're not very good. I don't know. Or like, for example, the Yankees saying, well, we're off to a slow start and, we'll turn it around. Will you though?
Yeah.
Because you've got Stanton struggling, Hicks struggling, or we're struggling.
They
I don't
always
know.
struggle. When has Stanton not struggled with the Yankees?
Right. That's my
right.
point.
Like,
that's my point.
No, you're exactly right.
But
he did hit a couple missiles the other day. Go back and look at where those pitches were.
Mm-hmm.
They were like top of the thighs, split the plate in half.
Yeah.
I mean, that's his hot zone.
Mm-hmm.
They were breaking balls.
He seems very robotic at the plate, his mechanics.
And always has been. Yeah, it's just
maybe we should do a mechanical breakdown series on him too.
He's more of I mean, I don't know. I don't know him personally, but you gotta like his approach must be bad. Either his vision, his depth perception, or his approach must be bad. Like Joey Gallo, for instance, who I think is a really good hitter. When I look at his mechanics, I'm like, he has pretty good mechanics. Well, he doesn't have great vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like he can't do anything about it. Like that's just what he's going to be. He doesn't see 2020.
Right.
So you better be able to hit what you could see, and so he struggles. But if you have somebody with really good vision, like Joey Gallo would almost be like my dad was. Like you gotta cheat to be successful because you're not on the same level as everyone else. You're not seeing spin, you're not seeing seams as much. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there's he's one example I've heard of, but I'm sure there's other guys in the league that just don't see sharp. And they're guys that they miss balls. Like they have good swings, but they miss it because they're this much under it or this much over it. But it's not a mechanical issue. Where I feel like Stanton misses pitches by like this much. Can you see that? Is that in the screen? Like so there's something.
I don't know.
Like he
watch him,
sells out too much or something.
I watch his swing. I maybe this is the scout in me talking, but I don't like his swing. It's just choppy. I don't think if he was smaller and he wasn't the absolute physical specimen that he is, it just wouldn't. The swing wouldn't play. I don't know. Maybe we can do. He wouldn't be in the.
Yeah, he wouldn't be a major leaguer if he wasn't that body. And I think what he does is he tries to make his swing shorter and smaller and less move because he's so strong. He knows I don't need to get my whole body into it. Right. I'm strong. I create plenty of bat speed. And maybe if I take away extra movement and just am robotic, then I can just go from here to here and make more contact. But it doesn't. It's his timing and rhythm and his athleticism that's taking away from his lack of contact, not from point A to point B. He's plenty quick.
Yeah.
He doesn't have terrible long swing. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take him 0.2 seconds to get to the ball. He's efficient. But why does he still not hit? Well, there's more to hitting than just swinging a bat really, really fast.
When you brought up Joey Gallo and his vision, it brought me back to a time where I was watching an old YouTube game of my favorite NFL player of all time, Troy Aikman, my favorite of all time.
Really?
And you didn't know that?
Do you like him as an announcer too?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Him and Joe and Troy on Sundays. Are you kidding me? There's no better.
Well, we'll see you guys next year with a new host of the podcast at the Lab BCS. This is Jake Epstein.
That's all right. I'll start my own podcast with Troy. Anyway,
you'll get more listeners.
I don't know what I would talk to him about though. It brought me back to a time though. I was watching a game on YouTube and Pat Summerall.
He's a winner.
Yeah, exactly. And did you ever see the way he throws the ball? I used to like him I told you, I think I've said this story. No, I told my sister this story. I didn't tell my dad, who's a Giants fan, for the longest time that Troy Aikman was my favorite player because I was afraid I was going to get yelled at as a kid. And so my sister one time
had to grow up in Texas.
So as we've gotten older, my sister one time at dinner called me out on it and looked at me and said, who's your favorite player again, football player again? And I had to tell my dad. He didn't really care at this point. But it reminded me of a time when Pat Summerall and John Madden were doing the game and Troy Aikman's contact fell out. And John Madden said when Troy Aikman has his contacts in, he can see better.
That's the same kind of Troy Aikman comment I hear when I watch games. Oh, that was a real great pass down the right sideline there. Thanks, Troy. I'm watching the game. You're not doing the radio.
What? You're not listening then.
You are. He made a stupid comment as an announcer. He sees better when his contacts are in. Isn't that what you said?
No, John Madden said that about Troy Aikman when Aikman was playing.
Right, that he sees better when his contacts are in.
Yeah. And you're telling me that Aikman does the same thing?
Yeah, he says obvious stuff.
Oh, you're out of your mind.
He doesn't bring anything to the game. He's like, oh, there was a nice run. There's a great hole that was opened up.
So I guess
thanks.
So I guess just to go with our topic today, you're saying Troy Aikman as an announcer is overrated.
Yes, but as a player, not. Great player.
Great player. One of the best of all time.
And
he's honestly, my kind of guy, by the way.
And honestly, he's a good announcer too.
You don't think he is a good announcer. You can be honest.
Well, I like Romo. And probably people don't like Romo.
I don't mind him. My mom absolutely can't stand him. She's like, why does he talk so much? All he does is talk.
Yeah.
He just yaps all the time. He doesn't shut up.
I wasn't a quarterback, right? So, and I didn't play football very long. So, to me, I learn a lot listening to him. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, this and that. And so he brings things to me, but maybe that's different. Maybe, the average football fan, no, they're football fans. They're football fans, man. They know stuff. But I feel like sometimes there's announcers that just state the obvious. And they don't bring anything.
Aikman's one of them, you're saying.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, if you really listen.
So he's overrated. Joe Buck, overrated, underrated?
He's overrated.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Yeah, he's over.
How do you figure?
I don't know. That's what everyone else says. I'm just going along with everyone else.
A couple of other quick notes from this week. Congrats to Clemson softball pitching staff for 2 no-hitters in 1 week.
Are we changing the subject?
Well, because I know you're a softball
Pat
guy.
Summerall
Is he overrated, Pat Summerall?
No. You know who the best is?
Who?
Jim Nantz.
No, overrated. Okay, I got one. Mike Tirico, overrated, underrated.
Jim doesn't talk about himself all the time, like Buck.
Joe Buck has never talked about himself in his life, although he did write a book. Overrated, underrated, Mike Tirico.
President Obama. Mike Tirico? Mm-hmm. That's a good one. I don't know. I don't want to say anything about Mike Tirico.
Why not?
I feel like he's really entertaining, but I don't feel like he's very professional. Like when he does golf tournaments, I don't know. It's like I like listening to him, but he doesn't seem like the prototypical announcer. I don't know.
Okay. I think he is so criminally underrated because everybody, when they put announcers into categories, they go, Buck, Michaels, Nance, Jamoke over here, but Tirico's always kind of on.
Yeah, Tirico has a weird delivery, but he's smooth with it.
He's so
smooth,
I
like him. I always like him, but I don't ever see Tirico as, the head. I don't think he has the voice, to be that lead guy.
Al Michaels, overrated, underrated?
I don't think he's overrated.
He's neutral.
Yeah, he's what he is. I think Al Michaels is terrific. And I think the fact that he's still good at, I don't know how old he is. He's got to be 70, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's still pretty good.
Chris Collinsworth, overrated, underrated?
I like Collinsworth. Yeah. I would say underrated. I think he brings a ton of that. Wow, I never thought about that value.
Yeah, I agree. All right, now we're back on the same page.
Okay.
So you have nothing to say about the Clemson softball pitchers throwing 2 no-hitters in 1 week?
How about the girl from North Texas that just struck out 21 players every out? That was pretty cool.
Wait a minute. Is that every out? So she struck out. They play 7 innings. Sorry, our softball listeners, I apologize. I don't know. I should know. 7 innings.
Yeah. And she struck out every batter.
What's her name?
She struck out every batter, and she plays for North Texas. Okay. I don't know. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Well, congrats.
But that's pretty cool. And congrats to Clemson as well.
Another interesting thing I found a couple of days ago, Kris Bryant, who was one of the subjects of our Bounce Back Year episode a few episodes back. So go ahead and listen to that. He's off to a really good start this year. Mm-hmm. So we talk about on this show getting good pitches to hit, right? We always talk about that. We just talked about it with a little bit with Giancarlo Stanton there, whose name when he came into the big leagues was Mike Stanton.
Big Mike.
Mike Stanton also was a pitcher for the Yankees in the late 90s, you might remember.
Yeah, left-hander.
Anyway, Kris Bryant this season, we talk about not missing pitches and not missing the fastball. We've talked about that many times on this show. So I got this stat from Tim Kirchin the other night, and it's pretty accurate. I think it's around. This is in the ballpark. I don't think it's changed all that much. But Kris Bryant against the fastball this season is hitting 350 as compared to 230 last year. So I think, obviously you can give a better explanation to that, but there's a lesson in that statistic. Don't miss the fastball.
First thing they tell you in pro ball, if you can't hit a fastball, then you should go find something else to do. It's true.
That's right.
But you do have to be able to, look at all the breaking balls guys throw nowadays. So, so let's go back to why were the Cubs, they're hitting better this week, but why were the Cubs awful, right? So I don't know what their philosophy is and what they're trying to do, but they have the worst average of any player on fastballs at the belt, from the belt to the belly button. Like awful. Like Baez, everybody in their lineup, nobody get Bodie, whatever. Like Rizzo's the only one that kind of get to it, right? Because they're all dumpers. And where do they hit balls? At the shins, right? So what happens now is I guarantee you Bryant set up his hack attack machine at the belt at 90 plus miles an hour during the off season. And he just worked on staying on top. And then he rolls into the season. How are they going to pitch the Cubs? You go to your scouting report for the week. Oh, we got to throw fastballs up. Boom. He's ready for it. He prepared for it. He did his job. And now they'll start to make adjustments with him, but probably not with Baez and some of the other guys they have in their system. So I guarantee you that was, and you can't, if you dump the barrel early, you're not going to catch up to a fastball at the belt. And it's a really hard pitch to lay off of, right? And it's a strike. So you got to find a way to get to it. Now, once in a while, they are going to leave it down, right? They're trying to throw the belt, they throw it at the thighs, and maybe somebody's going to run into it. But he definitely made an adjustment to get to that pitch this offseason, and good for him.
Yeah.
Very good for him. And if I was the Chicago Cubs coach, every day I would have a hack attack machine, and I probably wouldn't even put it up high. I'd probably keep it at like a 5-foot release point with a high spin rate. So it was only dropping like 2 or 3 degrees. And I would make all my guys hit low line drives with it. Boom, every day, just to feel that move, to get out of that funk that they were in.
Yeah.
The problem is they were in it. Somebody put them in it. Somebody said, this is what we have to do. And it didn't work.
Yeah. And Baez is back to being the old Baez on the negative side where he just chases everything.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Right.
Yeah. Awful.
Because where do you chase down? It's easy to chase down.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if you're a low ball hitter. I'm a low ball hitter. Ooh, I see a slider down. Maybe it looks like a fastball out of the hand. It's in my wheelhouse. Boom. Now all of a sudden it's at my foot. Done. Swinging every time.
I'm giving myself more credit than I should be, but I noticed that they didn't lose any bat speed or bat quickness. And scouts have said that as well in an article that I read this week. So what, in your opinion, what's going on? Why are they missing, besides chasing, why are they missing the fastball so much? Why are they missing?
Because they're trying to hit everything in the air. They're concerned about speed. They're concerned about, whatever, launching balls high.
Yeah.
Missing in the air. I want my miss to be in the air, not the ground. And they didn't have the right way. There's a right way to do that, and there's a wrong way to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say it on a podcast the right way to do it, because that's why I make money consulting. Right. But there's, if you want to increase your average launch angle, there's certain ways to do it. And there's certain ways that seem obvious that will lead to a team never hitting at all. So when you make that change, when teams tried to make that change a few years ago, somebody's like, oh, we got to hit the ball in the air more. We got to hit home runs. And then they made a change throughout the entire organization.
Yeah.
Just totally destroyed them. And now they're trying to find ways to fix it, to fix that problem. And some people are smart enough to do it and some aren't.
Yeah. Or some have the experience and some don't.
And some, that's right.
All right, before we get into today's topic, let's break into our listener question. By the way, we didn't get any questions or topic ideas for overrated, underrated. So I'm a little disappointed in our listening audience, but we did get a listener question. And this comes to us from Sam from Chicago, or somewhere in and around Chicago.
All right. We were talking about the Cubs. Hope White Sox fan. There is another team in Chicago that's pretty darn good.
I know, and a couple of pretty good hitters as well.
A couple pretty good hitters, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And a nice ballpark, by the way.
Yeah.
This comes to us from Sam from somewhere in Chicago. He sent this via jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Sam writes, "Hi, Jim and Jake. Great show you guys have on here." I just, when I read that sentence, I just heard his Chicago accent say that.
Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago. My son is in middle school and he's thinking about playing football this fall. One of his baseball coaches warned against him doing that, saying there's a chance that it will slow his bat speed down. Is this true? I thought playing as many sports as you can when you're a kid helps develop a more diverse athletic skill set. Thanks. I really enjoy listening every week. And again, that's from Sam from Chicago or somewhere in Chicago, sent to us via jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Sam, thank you very much for the question. We do appreciate it.
Yeah. Sam, let him play football. Does he like football? Let him play football.
Mm-hmm.
What's he going to do? He's going to get bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a friend here, and I work with his son, and he plays at the Logan. He's a freshman this year at the high school, and he plays football. He's not a great football player, but his baseball coach wants him to play football because the lifts, the workouts they do for football, the football strength coach is fantastic. He's like, go work out with the football team. I have a kid in Texas that's a football and baseball player. He's a junior this year, great athlete. He works out with the football team every morning. His high school coach wants him to work out with the football team instead of the baseball team. So he works out with football in the morning, even during the season. So go play football. I think every coach has their own ideas and, maybe getting too big. Now, if he's a running back, maybe he gets hurt, I mean, that would be my concern if playing football, but it would have nothing to do with my swing speed getting less, maybe if you played football and never picked up a bat for 2 years, maybe then your bat speed would be less, but no, he's going to be just fine.
Yeah. When I read that question and
is it middle school?
Yes. Yeah.
Gosh, have fun. Middle school football is like the first time you put pads on for the most time for your school.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I don't know if it's for them. Yeah. Well, no, right. Yeah. But when I saw slow bat speed down, when I saw that in the email, I was like, really? Somebody actually told him that? That doesn't really I don't see how that would.
I mean, that could be some old school stuff like, oh, you get bulky, you get too bulky. I mean, maybe the kid's an offensive lineman. I don't know. He's, going to be 300-pound monster. And well, that might, slow some bat speed down. But I think it's been proven over the last decade or so that strength, increases bat speed.
Yeah. Play every sport you possibly can. I'm certainly going to tell my kids anyway. Yep. All right. Final segment of our show, our main topic today. It's our first ever overrated, underrated. And we already got a taste of it earlier when you said you didn't like Troy Aikman.
I didn't say I didn't like him.
You said you didn't like him as a commentator.
I said that he doesn't bring a lot to the table. If Captain Obvious was an announcer. No, I'm just kidding. I just like people that, I always like to learn things that I don't know a lot about. And I don't.
So let me ask you this. What's and this is kind of cheating, but what color commentators in baseball do you learn from?
Yeah.
Not many, because you already know a lot of stuff.
No.
A-Rod?
I hate to say it. His delivery is awful. Like awful. But I
hate how he calls Matt Vasgersian Matty. It really kind of gets me annoyed.
Like I call you Jimmy.
No, you don't call me Jimmy. You call me Jimbo.
Podcast. In fact, I changed my daughter's number to 21 this year, so I'd remember your email address.
Good.
She was number 3. I was like, hey, 2 + 1 = 3. How about your 21 this year? So I can, reiterate it. I enjoy listening to the content that A-Rod puts out from a mental aspect, because I think it's really, really good. And I think young kids can learn a lot from it. Everyone thinks, oh, A-Rod, he was this freak, and, he maybe had, performance enhancing things and this and that. But the fact of the matter is that dude came up, he was an all-star at 19 years old, he was a great shortstop. So he has feel, he has above average mental abilities when he got into the box, so I like when he spits that out. Sometimes
Who's the
Eduardo
Rockies guy?
Perez.
Oh, Eduardo, yeah.
Eduardo Perez like says some really. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, that's really good stuff. And then sometimes he says stuff where I'm like, no, that doesn't work. You can't look for a 95-mile-an-hour fastball and hit like an 80-mile-an-hour slider. Like you can try your best, but that's going to be really hard to make that adjustment. You might be able to foul it off, but staying through something like that is very difficult. The Rock, I haven't watched the Rockies game all year.
Why?
I don't know. They really upset me with the whole Nolan Arenado thing. Yeah. Monfort's he wants to make his money, and
who?
The owner.
Oh, Monfort. I thought you were saying Manfred wrong.
Oh no, Monfort. Monfort. Yeah. Monfort. So Monfort just, whatever. He takes his net revenue at the end of the year, and
right.
He doesn't really care. He gets. I mean, they had such a. If they would have just paid for a decent free agent once or twice to put along with, Blackman and Story and Arenado.
Yeah.
Like it could have been a really great place, and they just didn't. They could have gone out and got a free agent catcher. They could have gone after Real Muto or something.
I would have said Yasmani Grandal.
Right.
Very affordable, very good defensively.
There are players out there. You get a pitcher or two, and it's like they just don't do anything. And so I haven't watched it. Anyway, their color guy is Jeff Hewson. Not my favorite, Ryan Spielborg sometimes fills in. He's kind of fun. He's Santa Barbara guy.
All right. How about this? Baseball, listening to baseball on the radio, overrated, underrated?
Underrated.
I agree.
I think so. I never do it. But
if you ever listen to football, on the radio, it's really hard to follow.
Yeah.
Same thing with basketball, and
it is. Yeah.
Not that those guys are bad, but it's just harder. You got to really.
Well, it's fast because everything happens in like a 6-second burst.
Right.
And then they wait for 35, 40 seconds, for the play clock to, get the play in and all that stuff. And then it's like boom, boom, boom. So you got to talk really fast when it happens. Where baseball, you're just kind of cruising through. And then when they hit a ball, if you're 5 seconds late on the call, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah. It's like nobody knows.
Well, it's just there's some people who are really good at doing football on the radio.
Did we just start overrated, underrated without even knowing?
We did.
Or did you?
Well, I introed it. I segued
did.
to it. I said final segment, our main topic, overrated, underrated. But that wasn't the order I was going to go. I was just spitballing. That's what we do on the show. We spitball.
Obviously.
All right, we'll start with. Do you want me to start with movies? All right, what do you want me to start with? Movies, decades, 90s TV shows.
Yes.
I'm going to start with movies.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll go through these fairly quick. The Taken series, overrated, underrated.
Oh, I saw the first one. I have 3 daughters. I got scared to death. I make them watch all of them. This is why you don't go to Europe.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't know. What do you think? I'll leave this one for you. Overrated. Okay.
100%
okay.
Overrated.
Okay.
It's the same plot in all 3 movies. When are you going to, when is the daughter, or when are they going to learn to not get kidnapped? Learn some street smarts, honey.
Right.
The Rush Hour series.
Underrated.
Oh, completely underrated.
Yeah.
Chris Tucker is
Hilarious.
Top Gun, overrated, underrated. And if you say underrated, I'm going to spit on you.
Overrated, then. That's easy. If you're gonna spit on me through the phone, that's gonna be some weird. Like, I learned all about the horned frog,
the
TCU horned frog. We went down to Texas to view some schools, for my oldest, and so we kind of started in Dallas and made our way down to College Station. And I learned the horned frog, because they got these big what a beautiful campus TCU is, by the way, and their sports facilities and the way they lay it out is so cool. Like, I wanted to go there. But the horned frog is only like this big,
right?
And it shoots blood out of its eyes,
right? Okay.
That's it. What were we talking about?
We're talking about Top Gun. I'll say right now, it's overrated.
Oh, the horned frog's underrated. Top
No,
Gun.
I said Top Gun. I never brought up the Horn Frog. You brought
Top Guns. Oh no, you said you were going to spit through the phone. I immediately thought Horn Frog shooting blood out of its eyes. But
I'm not going to shoot blood out of my eyes. I'm just going to.
But something spit's going to come out of the phone. That's like blood out of the eyes. Yeah, we can call that. I mean, I love Top Gun.
Do you really? I had to sit on a college bus, watching that movie every road trip. It's fucking awful.
Yeah.
It's
definitely over. Well, it's not an awful movie, but it's probably overrated.
If you've seen it more than 3 times, it's awful. Wedding Crashers, overrated, underrated. Overrated. The Shining, overrated, underrated. The Shining with Jack Nicklaus, not the first one. The Shining with Jack Nicklaus or Nicholson, whatever his name is.
What was the first one?
There's one that was made before 1980. That did not involve Jack Nicklaus or Shelley Duvall.
Nicholson.
So the Nicholson one I'm talking about. Overrated, underrated.
Was it still the same story with the book?
It was pretty much the same story with the book, yes.
That's a tough one. I'm going to say underrated because the first time I watched it, I was like, and then like the third time I was like, whoa, there's a lot of depth in there.
Yeah, and a lot of people can't grasp the ending.
Yeah, right.
For whatever reason. It's hard to grasp.
Yeah.
What do you think the ending was about? I'm putting you on the spot.
I don't know. It was his demise. It was just how your situation can change you. What's the word I'm thinking of? Not the community, but the environment that you're in.
Yeah.
Can mold you into a person. Like if you're a baseball player and you're in a bad environment with a team, your coaching staff, it's going to change you as a player. He obviously was in a bad environment.
See, that's why you need, it's the problem with our country nowadays. You need winners in this country or in a clubhouse and in the country. In a clubhouse, you need winners and you need people who buy in. You can't have people who just freelance. That's how teams win. That's how teams lose. That's how you lose as a society, but nobody really cares. All right. So The Shining, I'm gonna say neutral for that, by the way.
Yeah.
Great movie. It's a great movie to watch like in the winter.
I didn't know neutral was an option.
It can be special circumstances.
Okay.
All right, I got one that's completely overrated movie. Armageddon with Bruce Willis. That fucking movie is so overrated. Oh my God.
That movie comes with a slice of cheese.
Critics hated it, but it made so much money.
Yeah.
Maybe because I was around the time when like the world was supposed to end in Y2K and people were into that shit. Silence of the Lambs, overrated, underrated.
Underrated.
Yeah, underrated, but they shouldn't have made more movies. They should have just
they should. You're exactly right.
Yeah. All right, move on to decades. It's going to be an interesting little conversation here. Moving on to decades. The 70s decade, overrated, underrated.
Yeah, it depends who's, I guess, looking and creating I don't know. I feel like all the old decades are underrated.
All right, I'd say overrated for that. 80s, the 80s decade, overrated, underrated.
Overrated.
Underrated. 90s decade.
Underrated.
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 Is this turned into a competition all of a sudden between us? I have a theory, by the way, about decades, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think that the 90s was like, everyone's like, oh, the 90s is brutal. Everybody wore flannels and baggy clothes and stuff like that. But now the music's coming back. The music scene was good in the 90s.
Yeah, it was good in the 90s. Now, though, the music
alternative.
What are your daughters listening
we're old.
to? What are daughters?
Sometimes they listen to 90s. They listen to, I don't know,
all that
TikTok.
pop crap.
Yeah.
I turn on like one of the top 40
The
stations.
Baby. They like The Baby.
See, I don't even know what that is.
Baby is a big one. Yeah, he's some kind of new guy.
They
also listen to Gordon Lightfoot. I brainwashed him with a little Gordo once in a while.
I turned on. I don't know who that is, by the way. I turned on a top 40 station the other day, and just I couldn't. I had to turn it off. The crap that's on there is just awful. It's awful music.
You're an old man now, Jim.
Well, no, the 90s and early 2000s. All right, so here's my theory. 70s decade was vastly overrated. In fact, I think it was a terrible decade for this country. The 80s decade was vastly underrated, and it was so great from everything that because it was starting to develop. Things were starting to really develop. And the peak, I think, of this country, maybe we'll get back to it one day, was the 80s decade. The 90s decade was so great because it fed off the 80s decade, and it compounded with the music, the great music that was starting to develop, with the new hip hop and rap music that was starting to come into play that was actually really good. Movie, you can't look at the 90s decade. You can't tell me that the TV shows, the sitcoms, everything on TV back then, everything back then is comparable to what is on TV now. Think about it. The best sitcom, and this is the truth, everybody, and I mean this, the best sitcom on TV today, if it was on TV today, would be King of Queens. King of Queens wasn't that good of a show in the 90s. Think about it. It really wasn't that good of a show, but it would be the best sitcom on TV nowadays. Everything sucks now.
Yeah.
But see,
well, there is no. It's like all Netflix, and it's like 40-hour movies.
Yeah. And then see, in the 90s, the 90s decade was so great that it bled into the early 2000s and mid 2000s, 2005, 2006. That's when things started to go downhill a little bit.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's
it all has to do with Adam Sandler.
Why do you blame him? You don't like his movies?
No, I don't know. When Adam Sandler was at his peak, so was this country.
Overrated, underrated, Adam Sandler.
Overrated. But I love him to death.
All right, 90s TV shows.
Those are some stupid movies that I watch all the time. So maybe he's not overrated.
The stupidest movie I ever saw with him in it, Click.
Yeah.
God awful.
Yeah.
So some 90s TV shows. Seinfeld, overrated, underrated.
Neutral.
Okay.
It was the best and still is.
Yeah. Everybody Loves Raymond, overrated, underrated.
Underrated.
Yeah, I agree.
That was a pretty good show.
I have friends who absolutely hate that show, but I'm like,
really?
How do you not like Everybody Loves Raymond? It's so great.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Frasier.
Underrated.
Oh, fucking overrated. This show sucked.
Oh my God. That show had great writers. You're not smart enough for that show. That's the problem.
Probably not. Family Matters. Overrated, underrated.
I wasn't a Family Matters guy. I'm going to say overrated. It was annoying.
Yeah. Kind of a caricature of things, I guess.
Yeah.
Here's speaking of caricature of a show of life. Boy Meets World, overrated, underrated.
Never saw it.
No, overrated by far.
Okay.
The X-Files, overrated, underrated.
Never watched that either.
What'd you watch in the
Probably
90s?
Underrated.
Did you watch anything in the 90s?
Yeah, watch Seinfeld. I just told you, and Friends.
That's it? Oh, Friends. Okay.
Full House.
Overrated.
Full House a lot.
Very overrated.
Oh yeah.
And
but as a kid,
very cheesy.
Yeah.
Friends, overrated, underrated.
Probably overrated.
Oh, I would have said underrated because I didn't watch enough of it. Probably
really?
More of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good, but I mean, they got paid. I mean, that was the biggest show on TV, right, for a long time, especially after Seinfeld.
Yeah. All right, final one here, and we've saved the best for last. Baseball topics.
So really, what we should have started with before we lost all our listeners.
No. I think you start baseball's last. That's the main event. Main event on this card. All right. Travel ball. That was one topic you brought up last week. Overrated, underrated.
I think it's overrated.
Why do you say that?
Because it's so expensive, and there's so many tournaments that make so much money.
Yeah.
And it almost forces players to get into that world in order to compete. Now, I think the players playing that much is good for them. I think they need to play, but I also think they need to, learn the dynamic of being with their buddies playing in a sandlot environment, after school or playing other sports. So yeah, I'm not a big travel ball. I think it's there's an organization here in Colorado, and I have a student I work with that plays for the organization. They're pretty much the only one. They used to do a lot of instruction when I first got here, so they didn't like me because I was like a threat, because there's only 5 million students, that play baseball in Colorado.
Right.
They didn't want to give any up, right? So, but anyway, so they got out of the instruction business and into the travel team business, and they make a killing. But it cost this one kid, he said it cost him between summer and fall this year, so it cost him $7,000 to play and he's 14 years old, 15 years old, to play on a travel team. Yeah. So
really it's all political. I mean, if you make it or not, if you have the money, you'll make it.
And if you have the money, you'll make it. And the problem is that organization is in bed with the high school that he goes to.
Mm-hmm.
So his high school coach actually works for that organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more players he gets in that organization, I'm sure he gets a kickback for it, right? So it's just crooked as all can be. Now, travel ball, the 10-year-old level, 12-year-old level, if it's done right, then it's great. Like the people down in Texas, it's pretty good. Like they have we're gonna do 6 tournaments, right? And we're gonna practice once or twice a week. Like they do it right, and then they take 2 months off, 3 months off, and they don't gouge their players, right? Like it's maybe $1,500 a year, or for the summer. And they can drive to places, right? They can drive to Houston to play, or Austin to play, or Dallas to play, where in Colorado and other areas, people are flying all over the country to play in these tournaments.
Yeah.
And then they get there, and then there's 2 players from they're not even on the team that are just going to guest play with them because they need a couple pitchers to be seen at a perfect game event. So I digress a little bit here, but I don't think it's needed. I mean, we played.
Well, what about Babe Ruth travel? I played in Babe Ruth. I didn't play Little League because it wasn't around in my region, but I played Babe Ruth travel.
That's the kind of stuff I played, where you had a league.
I like
and
that.
You played every Sunday. You played double headers on Sundays.
We played tournaments too.
And you played, but
district, states, region. We had district, states, regionals, and then nationals for the Babe Ruth.
Correct. So you couldn't pay to get into a tournament. You had to compete to win your, league. And then and then there was like a league tournament. It's like college, right? Then you went to your league tournament for San Diego. If you won your league or your section, then you went to the state championship. If you won the state, then all of a sudden you got to go to a regional. And then if you won the regional, you got to go to the World Series. Well, now it's like, if you're on the list, it's $1,500 a team. You can join any tournament you want to. So it's absolutely pay to play, versus qualified to play. And it is what it is. It's not going anywhere. I'll tell you that much. It's a big old business.
Yeah, I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do when I have kids about that.
I'm right in it right now. And it's like, I'm going to try to wait. I'm definitely not doing it at 10. I might, because your whole life is done too, as like a parent.
Yeah.
And
I think baseball parents thrive off that because they think their kids are going to go pro at age 11.
See, I hate it. Like I don't want to go like the entire, I'm not going to be able to spend time with my other kids.
Yeah.
If I take my one kid to a tournament in Fort Collins and we play, 6 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then we drive home or stay in a hotel and then we do it again. And it's very difficult. So, I'm like at 14, 13, 14, I can kind of see it. I didn't start doing it until I was 14.
We didn't do too much traveling when we did district regionals and whatever. Districts. But I'll say this: that is a lot of sacrifice for parents. By the way, parents I do think love it, but it's a sacrifice for these siblings. So I want to thank my sister for all those years for coming to my games and sacrificing. I did go to her cheerleading tournaments, but
it's any sport. It's not just travel baseball.
Yeah,
it's travel basketball. It's gymnastics. Gymnastics is crazy.
Yeah. So is cheerleading, by the way.
Cheerleading.
My sister did that competitive cheerleading. There were times where they had to go to Maryland. They went all over the place, up and down the Mid-Atlantic, mid-region. A lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
But there's something different about baseball where parents just think that. So you and I, though, we have a skewed perspective because we have experience in the pro game. So we kind of think that's a little different,
right?
We think of it differently.
I think so.
And
some parents love it. Some parents want to go sit in the ballpark all day, talk to other people, go out to dinner with them at night, you know, and that's cool, right? But like some parents enjoy it more than their kids.
Yeah,
that part of it.
Right.
And
well, we're too busy. We have podcasts to record.
Yeah, tell me, what am I going to do if I got a tournament? I can't do the podcast.
You can do the podcast live from the tournament. You can do it live in the stands and perform in front of everybody, so everybody can be listening to you.
It's a good idea.
I know. I'm full of them. All right, so travel ball for you is overrated. I got you. Right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, certain aspects of it.
All right, junior college, overrated, underrated?
Underrated.
Yeah. I agree with that. It's underrated though if you're have a chance to get drafted. Right?
It's underrated if you want to go get general ed. Even if you're not an athlete, I think it's underrated.
Okay.
You don't have to party your freshman year and join a sorority or fraternity. Go get your classes done.
Yeah.
Save that's just money. Being that. Yeah, that's just from a financial perspective.
Bat speed, overrated, underrated?
How much time do we have?
We got about 5 more minutes.
I'm going to say, for the context of the state of baseball right now, it's overrated.
Okay.
Because bat speed without game bat speed, because you can have bat speed off a tee. Right. But bat speed without a swing plane, without bat quickness and efficiency is point. It doesn't. All right. It's not a point. But if you have a good swing and you don't have very good bat speed, you're not going anywhere either. So
bat quickness, overrated, underrated?
Underrated.
Okay. And what is bat quickness, just so everybody knows?
The time it takes for you to get from your launch position to contact. So it's an efficiency number. That's but it also and so if you could have really good bat speed, but it could take you a long time to get to that bat speed, and then it's kind of overrated. But you can also have a good efficiency number by just letting the ball get really deep. So the key is you have to have good bat speed and a good bat quickness. Bat quickness usually means you don't have a casting problem, an armbar problem, or if you're making contact at your front foot, but it means you don't usually have a really bad catastrophic issue.
Yeah. So you really can't have one without the other.
Correct.
And one's not more important than the other.
My dad always used to say bat quickness was more important.
And what do you say?
Well, if you're a 230-pound major league player, it's definitely more important because nobody in the major leagues has a bat speed problem. If you're a 12-year-old that's just trying to hit the ball out of the infield, then bat speed's really important.
So why do scouts always say, well, his bat speed is slowing down? Why don't they say bat quickness is slowing down?
They could, yeah.
They should. They don't do it, though.
Right. No. Yeah, he's not as quick as he used to be.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that's
Albert Pujols was quick the other night, hit a nice home run. Beautiful swing, by the way.
He is still, we got to do, can we do a mechanical breakdown series? Can we do a mechanical breakdown series on him?
Yeah, we could do old Albert, or young Albert, old Albert.
Hip rotation. Last one here. Overrated, underrated?
At a youth level, overrated.
Why is that?
Because everybody's like, you got to turn. Rotate fast. And it usually causes issues. Like if they rotate, they're conscious about their hips, then a lot of times their upper body will spin and then it causes problems.
Okay.
I've never had a problem teaching a player to use their hips.
Okay.
I've had a lot of problems having players over rotate.
What about upper levels, higher level? Overrated, underrated?
It's really hard to say. Yeah, I mean, neutral. I don't think big leaguers think about using their hips. But you know what I also think? I also think they use their hips really well.
Right. They do. They use their whole body well, don't they?
They use their whole body. Like a big leaguer never has to think about rotating. A big leaguer typically doesn't have a problem getting to an inside pitch.
Yeah.
Where a young kid does because they're doing something wrong with their arms. Like if they get long early with their arms, they're not going to be able to rotate their body. So hip rotation comes from your hands being very subservient during the swing. So not using your hands much. So if you never use your hands at all, you will just turn.
Yeah.
If you use your hands early, you won't rotate very well. So you have to have the perfect timing of rotating, right? Hips before hands, rotating, and then bringing the hands through. So I don't really have an answer for that. Neutral.
You know that drill where like kids put the bat behind their backs and they like just rotate
Worst,
the on deck
stupidest
circle?
drill ever.
Where do people come up with these drills? I don't get it.
I love it. Yeah.
Where do people come up with squish the bug? Yeah, right.
And they hit it. They put the bat and they try to hit the ball with it.
Yeah, it's really
it's just easy, right? My mom could do that drill with someone. There's no, you don't have to explain anything.
Yeah, right. It's like squish the. Where do these drills come from? It's just, oh boy. Okay.
They come from simplifying a process. You know, you have a dad that has a full-time job or a mom that has a full-time job, and they're going to coach their kid's 8-year-old team or 5-year-old t-ball team. Like they don't have time to research. They don't have time to go to clinics or seminars and do this. They don't have a background of it. So they try to, hey, your foot's got to turn. Your hips have to turn. How do you turn your hips? Turn them. Turn them fast. You know, versus, well, if your foot works good and your knees work, then your hips will rotate properly, right? That's how I would do it because I have experience or wisdom, as you would say. So they come from somebody trying to help that isn't qualified. It would be like me. Right. It'd be like me, you know, being, going over to Lockheed Martin over here, 30 minutes down the road and being like, yeah, you just got to increase the propulsion.
Right. Or right. Exactly. Right? Or it'd be like you going into the booth and telling Troy Aikman how to broadcast. We got a mechanical breakdown series in a couple of weeks.
Best ever closing ever. We're doing
both.
See you guys later.
Yeah.
You just Tatised me.
Ep just he just threw me a slider right down the middle and I fucking hit it 460 feet. For the record, that's the only ball I ever hit 460 feet.
But you got it all.
We're doing Bo Bichette in a couple of weeks. Ronald Acuna Jr. coming up too later on this not this month. What month are we in? April. I guess in June we're doing Ronnie. Maybe we'll do like a mechanical breakdown series on Troy Aikman's throwing ability, throwing motion.
Not an expert. I'm only an expert in listening.
All right. Yeah. So those are our upcoming topics. Thank you for listening, everybody. Do you have a promo you want to do for the lab? I always ask because, you got a business to run as well, along with your professional evaluating and all the other great stuff that you do, including being a great father.
I am a good father. Yeah, that's.
I mean that, by the way. Overrated, underrated as a father. I say underrated. That's what I say.
I mean, that's number one. Right?
Yes.
That's the reason I work is so that my kids can do stuff. You can have a house. I mean, that's the thing. It's all about it. And you'll find that, as you get older, you young son of a gun. The lab's doing great. If you want to come see us, come see us.
Where can they come?
We're here for you.
What's the pricing? Where can they come see you?
We do lessons. We have a couple. We got a couple new instructors. Yeah, we have. I guess the best part about the lab is you essentially are paying for a cage rental, a cheap cage rental.
Yeah, and
you're getting instruction. That's the best part, and game reps, and we're working on your vision. So it's awesome. We have like a 2-to-1 coach. 2 students per 1 coach ratio going on right now.
Yeah.
And we're all about making players better. So for $50 a session, you can get 90 minutes of instruction and repetition and total training at the lab. College Station, 2018 Peach Creek Road.
Perfect. I got it. I think I got the address right too in the graphic. So they don't call me the best.
The best is it's 2018. I believe that's when the land was purchased. 2018. We opened in 19. So it's like
interesting,
super easy.
Yeah, interesting. Me as a podcast host, overrated or underrated?
Totally underrated.
We'll talk to you next week, everybody. You take care now. Goodbye.